Hi there. Thank you very much for joining me. I've got two great guests conversations today. It's the justice warrior himself, Glenn Kirshner, joins me. We sat down just before New Year's, and it's on Substack and YouTube. And many of you watched live, but here now is the audio of it. And I've also got my conversation with a really interesting guy. I thought this was a great interview and conversation because he's such an interesting guy. Shawn Harris, who's running for Congress in Georgia's 14th district. Both of those guys are coming up on today's episode of Stand Up. I don't have the regular news segment because I'm on the road at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., where I'm covering Jim Acosta's event commemorating the horrific anniversary of January 6, 2021, when MAGA tried to overthrow the government and our democratically elected, electors. So I was in Washington, D.C. covering that. Hopefully I was able to post some of it, but I'm talking to you from the past right now. And I had these two conversations in the past, which were very good. I like them a lot. I think you're going to learn a lot from Glenn Kirshner coming up, even though we talked before the Jack Smith testimony came out, just before the New Year's in Venezuela and everything else. We covered a lot of issues that I think from the year were uncovered. I think it's a very valuable and relevant conversation with Glenn, and Shawn Harris is just a fascinating guy. So first, let's go right to my conversation with Glenn Kirshner. He, of course, is a former federal prosecutor, and I'm sure you're following him and supporting him on all the channels, especially YouTube and Substack. And you should join his community. He hosts these events every night at 8 p.m. on Substack. He's very addicted to the connection with you, as am I, which is why I'm here every day with and for you. Thank you very much for your support. Patreon.com/Pete Dominick. Let's do it right now with Glenn Kirshner, and then my conversation, or if you want to skip ahead, with Shawn Harris, who's running for Congress, begins at 41 minutes. All right, let's do it. The Kirshner Report. Yes, there he is. He's big and famous, social media giant. He's got millions of supporters and followers and fans because he's doing great work, fighting for justice because justice matters. Look who it is. My older, balder brother, Papa Hamster, Glenn Kirshner.
My brother in baldness. How are you, Pete? Happy holidays.
I love the going live. I'm no monster like you are. I hope to be someday get, hundreds of thousands of people watching my live things like a lot of people are, because I like the funny insults. And some MAGA guy said some real shitty thing to me, but then he said I look like a baby hamster, and I genuinely laughed. It's like, it's not untrue though.
Pete, one of my favorite lines is when you were down at our annual Team Justice gathering in D.C. and you were ripping on everybody, including Mike Fanone, who was there in the audience.
Who attacks Michael Fanone, American hero?
This is probably the whole night. This is my favorite line. You're up on stage and you're like, Mike, big, scary police officer. He's done it all. He's got the tattoos. But, you get up real close to him. He smells like a baby lamb.
It feels like the most.
I don't know. That just hit me as so damn funny.
I think I made that up in the moment ish. Yeah, I think I did, because I was just talking to him like right before you brought me up there at that amazing event that you host. And I think I thought of like what animal sounds the softest, most docile, most vulnerable, and I think that's what I came up with. I don't know if I could, even if I had time to think about it, if I could top it. Baby lamb seems the antithesis of what Michael Fanone is as well.
Not the way you would think Mike would smell.
No, You'd think he'd smell like blood and gunpowder and nails and tattoo ink and anger, whatever that smells like. Righteous anger, I should say. How was your Christmas, New Year's week here? I call it Taint Week, the week between Christmas and New Year's where nothing happens. Are you getting a lot of wishes from your famous friends? Did Robert De Niro text you and say, Merry Christmas, have a justice year or whatever? No,
I'm less concerned with my famous friends, and when I can get all six of my kids and all four of my grandkids under one roof, and that's heaven. To me, that is absolute.
I know. Don't get me wrong.
It makes me think that this is not what I had on my bingo card in my retirement from DOJ, right? I did not say, you know what, I'm going to go into courtrooms for 30 years and I'm going to bang out murder cases and RICO cases. And then I'm going to become a content creator. I mean, that was not the plan, right? And yet here we are. This is the fight that has chosen us, right? The fight for the rule of law, for democracy, for decency, for diversity, for ethics in government. And this is now what we get to spend our time doing all day, every day. But, when we right this American ship, and I have to believe we will, I'm going to go into a real retirement and just spend time with my kids and my grandkids, because there's nothing better. Everybody who has kids and grandkids knows, the kids can drive you nuts when you're raising them. But, man, once the grandkids come along, it's a whole different dynamic.
I don't know. I mean, listen, I want to believe that about you. I do believe everything you said about your family, what makes you truly feel rich. And I know it. I've seen it. We're personal, close friends. I've met your family. Obviously, I know your wife. She just texted me last night, but we shouldn't talk about it. Anyhow, I know that you feel that way, and I know that you weren't planning to land here and be, selling swag when you were in the federal government. But you're doing this because you have a lot of credibility on the issues that you talk about, obviously, which is why I like getting you outside your lane just a little bit. All that being said, the fact that you have become this person who is a credible expert on the legal issues and matters that you worked on for 30 years and explaining them in a way that really works for us, a lot of celebrities have become big supporters. They want your approval. And all I'm asking is, have we heard from anybody during the holidays? You're going to give me some bullshit modesty again? It's not bullshit, but
look.
He's not going to tell us.
No, I'm not going to tell you. But what I am going to tell you is I am as surprised as anybody that in this professional chapter 2, I would start getting these direct messages from people like, may he rest in peace, Rob Reiner, and who was the neurotic comic? Richard Lewis. May he rest in peace, Richard. These people and Robert De Niro. These people reached out to me and they're like, we appreciate your legal analysis, and we got some questions, and I would go on to develop relationships and friendships with these people, which again is just like this gift to this Jersey gutter kid. Like, I'm never going to meet Bob De Niro. Really? I mean, Raging Bull, are you kidding me? I was a boxer. My pop was a boxer. So, but that has been a real pleasant surprise. And, some of them, who are still with us will reach out from time to time and we chat. And
weren't you didn't you do an event with Reiner and Fugelsang? Was that you? Do you know?
I was on stage I just actually hosted Fugelsang's DC book launch, which separation of church and hate. I'll tell you, and I'm not a book salesman, and I'm not getting a cut of the proceeds from John's book. But if you want to learn and you want to laugh on every damn page on a topic as deep and dense as the Bible and Jesus's actual teachings, as opposed to Paul's letters, which are not Jesus's word. And I don't want to launch into all that. That book is amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, John, I've known John my whole career, and John's good at everything he does. But the thing that he always needed to do was write that book that he wrote, and that's why it's become so popular and a New York Times bestseller. So congratulations to our friend John Fugelsang. But you were on stage with him and
stage with Rob Reiner. And so I ended up traveling the country with Stephanie Miller's Sexy Liberal Tour. And that included John and lots of other great comics. So I would be on stage all the time. But the nice thing about it is I was part of the last block or act or segment or whatever you call it in Hollywood terms. You would know that. I don't know that stuff. And I would jump up on stage with another guest. So it was Rob Reiner one time. It was Mark Hamill. It was Ron Perlman. It was Jamie Raskin. It was Adam Schiff. So I would get to be on stage with these people talking about, the current state of the rule of law and how it's being, abused by Trump and his flunkies. But the thing that I loved about Rob Reiner, we got to meet his wife too. My wife and I, got to hang out with them. And the first thing Rob said when he and I walked on stage together to a wonderful audience out in California, he said, "I just want to go on record. I have more hair than Glenn Kirshner." Oh. And I'm like, so of course I said, "Yeah, it's go time, Daffodil. Let's go." That's not what I said. Instead, I just probably sat there looking wounded. I didn't have a snappy comeback. But recently, Pete, I wrote a piece, My Revenge on Rob Reiner. This was months before, obviously, he and his wife were taken by violent crime. And it was really more of a tribute and an homage to Rob, because I was an enormous fan of his work over the years. And I remember when I was sitting, I'm going to go stream of consciousness here for a minute. I was sitting in a federal court in Washington, D.C., covering the Oath Keepers trial for MSNBC. And the witness on the witness stand started reading text messages between two of the insurrectionists, two of the Oath Keepers. One was saying, "I'm on my way to attack the Capitol." I'm obviously paraphrasing exactly what he said. And the other one said, "Have fun storming the castle." And that's obviously a line from the iconic Princess Bride.
Wow.
So I run out into the hall and I'm messaging Rob. I'm like, "You're not going to believe this, but a line from your movie, The Princess Bride, just made a showing in the evidence in the Oath Keepers criminal trial, seditious conspiracy trial." And I think he was like equal parts amused and appalled, I think, because the insurrectionists are quoting Princess Bride as they're literally attacking American democracy.
That's a really interesting story and a great story. And I'm so glad that you got to spend time with him and that he got to spend time with you. And that is the portion that concludes the portion of our conversation where I drill you on your celebrity friendships and relationships, although we could keep going. I'm happy to. You say that you're going to someday retire when all this is done, but you can't even take a day off, as we just established. So you've been working through this holiday pretty much. You spent a couple days, with your family?
Yeah, I probably lied a couple of minutes ago. I'm going to find it really hard to actually retire,
right,
which is different than actually finding more time to spend with my kids and my grandkids. But, listen, justice is not a destination, man. We still have people whose rights are not being honored. Indeed, worse than that. They're being trampled all over by this administration. So what do? Do you stop fighting at some point? I don't think so. I think you fight right until your dying breath. And I was on last night with Harry Dunn and Jim Acosta because we're going to have to plug our January 6th event, at which I hope you're going to attend, at the National Press Club in D.C. to commemorate the 5-year anniversary of the Capitol attack. And, Harry just spit something out that I'd never heard before. And he was talking about how we all need to go a hell of a lot harder after justice and accountability than we did previously, when Merrick Garland just laid back and decided if he prosecuted Trump and company, it would just make the Department of Justice look too political and erode its legitimacy. Well, how did that work out for us, Merrick? Look at where we are right now with respect to the legitimacy of the Department of Justice. And Harry said, what we need ruthless patriots. And I'm like, dude, I think you just coined that phrase, and I Googled it. It's not a thing. But literally, we were on with Olivia Troy, and Olivia, as we were sitting there on air with Jim Acosta, purchased the
domain
URLs.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are. I can't even spell
the domain name. The domain. She got
domain.
Purchased
those. She started making T-shirts like literally while she's on air, and so Ruthless Patriots will be making an appearance at the National Press Club on January 6th, and I can't wait to be one of them.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Ruthless patriots pursue justice that matters. I mean, I think that's the point is, what does it mean to be a ruthless patriot in the terms that I imagine that Harry and everybody's discussing? It's the idea of what's been missing in, I think, a lot of our lifetimes for sure, because I would start with the Vietnam War, could talk about the Iraq War, the financial crisis, January 6th, Trump. What's been missing is accountability. And that's what was missing from the Biden administration's Department of Justice. They tried too little too late, I guess, Jack Smith's investigation. We could talk about it and rehash it. But it's about accountability. And you just have to wonder what that could ever look like. And you guys are going to draw that up. I think that you guys are going to be the architects of what accountability looks like, because there's a whole bunch of people in your lane especially that are going to be very influential in demanding congressional policymakers, with whom many of you have relationships with, do the right thing. Is that fair interpretation, that you're going to talk to your friend Eric Swalwell or any of the rest that you have a relationship with, that all these other kind of influential content creators, journalists, activists, you're going to say, you got to do this or else you're going to lose us too?
We have to do it. And ruthless patriotism, in our view, means aggressively applying the rule of law without fear or favor, particularly without fear of losing a case in court, applying the rule of law to the ruling class criminals, the people of power and influence and connections and wealth, often the white males. We have to apply the rule of law ruthlessly, but fairly and honestly and aggressively, because, Pete, this country has not had an appetite to hold the ruling class criminals accountable. And I am an equal opportunity. I wish I had a cute way to phrase this. Like, I call out people left, right, and center. I don't care, because what did we learn recently from some of the revelations in the Epstein files, Pete? We saw email traffic back in 2019 between and among federal prosecutors. And let me tell you, we choose our words very carefully because we know the implications of calling somebody a criminal co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And in that email traffic, it said there are 10. We've identified 10 co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein. By choosing that language, what those prosecutors were saying is, we have evidence that these 10 people are criminally liable for the crimes of Epstein and Maxwell. That is what a co-conspirator is. If we're co-conspirators and I commit a crime and you don't do a single thing to help me commit it, but you're one of my co-conspirators, guess what? The law says you're equally guilty and you can be punished just as severely as I am punished. So when I saw 10 co-conspirators, Pete, that was in 2018, 2019, under the first Trump administration. None of them were pursued and held accountable. And what happened during the Biden years? None of them were pursued and held accountable. How is it, Pete, federal prosecutors identified 10 of Maxwell and Epstein's criminal co-conspirators trafficking in sex trafficking young girls, and none of them have been held accountable? What does that tell us? Neither administration. The ruling class doesn't have an appetite to hold the ruling class criminals accountable. And that's got to effing change if we care at all about good government and if we care at all about the rights of victims. And ultimately, I believe, this is going to sound hyperbolic, if we care about keeping our republic.
Yeah.
We've got to hold them accountable.
Yeah, we have to hold them accountable for the crimes that they commit. You're calling them ruling class criminals, which I like, but it's white collar crime, and we can talk about the history of that and how it's been prosecuted or not been in this country, or how it works in other countries where there is arguably more justice and accountability. But also we have to have economic justice with those people too. I just had to throw that in. I mean, like, the idea that there are billionaires that exist. I keep thinking about other species, Glenn, where a tree would be allowed to grow so much taller than the rest of the trees if they're all the same species, or
one squirrel gets all the nuts and the rest have to freeze and starve during winter. Come on now.
Just one fat fucking dolphin swimming around, and he's the fattest dolphin. All the other dolphins, are like close to starving.
They're the worst. I hate dolphins.
You do?
No, I don't hate dolphins. Oh. How can you hate a dolphin?
I don't know why you would say such a thing. I was shocked by that. I'm glad you mentioned the Epstein files. I'm glad you mentioned the 10 co-conspirators, because I just watched your video over on YouTube and Substack, where if you're not following Glenn, you should be, obviously, but you probably are. And yeah, it was a great, very important video, and all the points you just made about the 10 co-conspirators. Where do we go from here on them? Aren't we going to find, what is your prediction? There's no way that now that we know this much that we're not going to learn much more. And furthermore, on the Epstein files, like, how many more things, how many more files, is there any way to determine how much more is going to come out? And why on earth, politically, is the Department of Justice and the Trump administration choosing to drip it out this way? I don't know. Maybe they're hanging on for some miracle that it's not going to come out. I just don't get it. But what else is left?
I think you're right. They're hanging on for that miracle. What they're doing is coming up with as many pretexts as they can to not fully disclose the Epstein files. And this is where I've got to beat up on my former friends in corporate media, legacy media, because when I saw DOJ, Pam Bondi's, the dirty DOJ leadership, I don't call them the dirty DOJ because there are 100,000 men and women who are career public servants who were there before Trump, and they're still there. Now, they've lost several thousand. They've either unlawfully terminated them, or people have self-selected and left because they can't be part of this dirty regime. So I don't call them the dirty DOJ because there are still 100,000 great public servants, hunkering down and trying to do the people's work. But boy, do we have dirty DOJ leadership in Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche. They couldn't be dirtier. They couldn't have less loyalty to the rule of law or the Constitution. But when I saw them announce, and this blew my mind, oh, we just found 1 million Epstein documents. And what did corporate media do? Look at the headlines. There were a couple that got it right, but most of them said DOJ just found 1 million documents. No, they didn't. Can you at least in the headline say DOJ claims they just found 1 million documents? Right. Where did they find them? They found them in the exact office that prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Took Ghislaine Maxwell to trial, tried to take Jeffrey Epstein to trial until he ended up dead in a jail cell and he couldn't tell tales about any of his co-conspirators. How is it that you just found 1 million Epstein documents? Did you not look in the part of the Department of Justice, the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office, that prosecuted the case?
But hold on. You don't think that they just found them? They've had them. They just said they. Right? You don't think there's any truth to? I mean, there isn't any reporting. How do you prove that you just found something? But the reason for saying that is, and now we need more time with it. But the truth is, we've always had these files, and we're just trying to take more time, distract you with, I don't know, a war in Venezuela, maybe.
Not how we need more time, Pete. But there is a pending investigation exception. So how soon before we hear Pam Bondi say, oh, my goodness, in these 1 million documents that we just found, there's lots of people who now need to be investigated. So we can't possibly disclose the Epstein files because we can't disclose anything if there's a pending investigation, which contradicts what Kash Patel said in his memo in July. He said, I exhaustively searched for every Epstein file. Did you read that memo? Yeah. It was like it was written by a fifth grader. He's like, I looked in storage rooms. I looked in desk drawers. I looked in broom closets. I did not find them in a boat. I did not find them with a goat. I did not look.
Hey, that's pretty funny.
This is what we had. We've got a deranged Dr. Seuss as the FBI director. Read the memo, Pete. Read that July memo.
Hold on. Have you done that bit before? That was very funny. I'm surprised by how.
First time, Dr. Seuss, deranged Dr. Seuss. Huh? So, no, seriously. What he was trying to do in that memo, because what did he tell us? His conclusion was, because I did such a thorough search for Epstein documents, I am announcing that there is nobody left to be investigated or prosecuted. There are no leads that need to be pursued. That was the lie he told at the time. I maintain it was a lie because he was trying to shut it all down. Yeah. This is before the Epstein Files Transparency Act, right? And now they shift to, oh, my goodness, I guess Kash missed 1 million documents that were in the office where the prosecutions were conducted. Come on, Kash.
I could talk to you about this very important story forever, but I just got a couple more minutes with you, and I want to ask you about two other legal developments that I think are pretty important here at the end of the year. Both are the Supreme Court. Let's go back to the earlier one first, which is we heard arguments on Trump's tariffs and the interpretation from every legal expert who I've read, because I'm not an idiot. I don't try to read these arguments or listen to these arguments before the Supreme Court and decide what I heard. I go to the legal experts. That's what we do here. And you being one of them, what is your interpretation of the arguments around the tariffs? It does seem, and you've just done a video, that the courts across the country are turning against him. If you believe that they're just politicians in robes, that they're all Republicans advocating for Republican policy, it would make sense that they are starting to turn against the Trump regime that they helped put there in the first place, because the country is starting to turn against them, because they know conservative orthodoxy on economics, free market capitalism is certainly against these tariffs. And so what did you hear in those arguments? What do you think that means if they, in June, decide against this? That seems like be a pretty big one. And then we got to talk about their more recent decision in terms of the National Guard.
Yeah, the National Guard case is hugely consequential. The tariffs case is too. And what I heard was a very skeptical group of Supreme Court justices, regardless of whether they typically lean left or typically lean right. And I actually think there is this fear in some Supreme Court justices in ruling against Donald Trump in big cases, because the first time Donald Trump says, guess what? And we've heard this over the years. I think it was Sandra Day O'Connor who first said it. Guess what? The Supreme Court doesn't have an army to enforce its rulings. So I'm going to do what I damn well please on the tariffs front. And if you can't count on the courts to control a runaway criminal executive branch, and we know we can't count on a Republican-controlled Congress to address a runaway criminal executive branch, what have we got? Well, we've got a dictatorship. And I actually think the Supreme Court, in part, is worried about that. We haven't seen the tariffs opinion yet. I do believe some of them, unfortunately, are more like politicians in robes than they are, judges of the law and the Constitution who are just supposed to call balls and strikes. But we'll see. I think they're going to rule against Trump on the tariff case. And then I think Trump will find new ways to abuse presidential power on the economic front. But yeah, what I'm really thrilled about is that we had 3 justices cross over on deploying the military to the streets of America, because that was a big ticket case.
Here's
go ahead.
The headline at The Economist. I go to The Economist, Glenn. The Supreme Court has taken the National Guard away from Donald Trump. His remaining options for sending in the troops are legally fraught. This is on the 23rd, so you might have missed it. The Supreme Court dealt the president a rare and consequential defeat, they say, when Americans had other things on their minds. In Trump v. Illinois, an emergency plea that had been pending since October, 6 justices ruled that Trump could not, the president could not, for now, deploy National Guard troops in Chicago to help federal officials manage protests against his immigration policy. I guess the only other detail I'd add that I heard is it doesn't necessarily apply to D.C. because the president has some jurisdiction in D.C., which is why I think he tried it there first. But in terms of every other state sending in their or another state's National Guard on this issue, explain.
So this is a hugely consequential ruling, because I think Donald Trump believed he would receive little or no pushback from the Supreme Court when, he made clear his determination to militarize the streets of America, whether with federalized state National Guard troops or federal military members proper, the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marine Corps. And so I think what his plan was, which feels kind of Project 2025-ish, and we need a Project 2026. We ain't waiting until 2029. But which felt kind of Project 2025-ish is, okay, I'm going to send military folks into the streets of American cities, and I'm going to create so much chaos, so much upheaval, and so I'm going to drive people out into the streets to protest what I'm doing, that I am then going to have to declare martial law, invoke the Insurrection Act, and postpone, in air quotes, because postpone means cancel, postpone the 2026 midterm elections, which would probably be the end of our democracy, short of an actual revolution. And now the Supreme Court, thank goodness, we had 3 justices cross over. Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, and the beer guy, Brett Kavanaugh, cross over and say, no, neither the law nor the Constitution permits him to federalize state National Guard troops and send them into the streets unless, Pete, there's an insurrection or a rebellion which connotes a foreign country, not protesters against government overreach, which connotes a foreign country coming in and attacking the United States. And they also paid lip service. Now, this is the shadow docket, so it's not a full-blown final opinion yet, but it's an encouraging sign. They also said, and what he can't do with federalized state National Guard troops, he also can't do with federal military members proper. So it's such a big effing deal, because it throws a huge hurdle in front of his efforts. And mind you, what the federal court judges said, including Trump-appointed judges, Judge Karen Immergut in the Portland National Guard case said Donald Trump's assertions in court are, quote, untethered to the facts. And Judge April Perry in the Chicago case said Donald Trump is pouring fuel on a fire he started. And that made its way up to the Supreme Court, and they said, you can't do it. That is huge.
Huge. That is, I don't know if it's one of the biggest, most important, but it's got to be up there in terms of how this impacts the American public, especially people that live in cities that they have targeted this way. It would seem, we'll see if they follow the rule, right? I mean, I don't know. They're using federal troops. They've basically militarized police, ICE, and all these other federal agencies that are in cities all over the country. But that's not the National Guard. And I guess they've also given billions of dollars to fund those. So it's like, yes, they can't use the National Guard, but they've created so many new fat ICE agents. You know, you have to be able to run a mile and a half and do 15 push-ups to make it in.
A mile and is there a time limit on the mile and a half? Can you do it?
Yeah, there's a time limit. You got to do it in like 3 days, and they can't.
And you got to do 50 or not. Did you make up 15 push-ups?
No, I think it's 15 push-ups. And I don't know, it's a mile and a half in some very reasonable, like 15 minutes or something. And it's really hurt recruitment, but still they've funded, Congress gave Department of Homeland Security, like, it feels like enough money to create their own new army. Thus I'm not going to say not needing the National Guard, but I don't know.
Yeah, and it does such disrespect to actual federal law enforcement officers and agents who care about the work and who are real protect and serve people. These are the people I serve with in D.C. I don't think any of this is sustainable, Pete. You get a bunch of fat high school graduates who want to get that sign-on bonus. It's not going to end well for anybody in law enforcement agencies that are being degraded by that. So, none of this is sustainable in the long run. He's doing a lot of damage. He's instilling a lot of fear, but I still believe, Pete, it's all going to implode. It's going to come crashing down. I don't know if that means we get a President J.D. Vance to step into the last year or two of Trump's term. I don't know. Nobody knows. But given the way Trump is behaving, 160 posts hating everybody on Christmas Day and Christmas night, I don't think any of this is sustainable.
I don't either. And by the way, Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom was 20 years old when she was shot point blank by two National Guardsmen were shot, but everybody knows the story. But she died. Andrew Wolf was critically injured. But I put that on Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, and anybody that supported putting National Guardsmen in uniform, like sitting ducks on the street, to do nothing, to be humiliated. In my opinion, I said to them, I go, when I was in D.C., I said, this is a humiliating assignment that you've agreed to take. And if you're just taking orders, I just want you to know it looks bad. You're not protecting people. And in the end, they put themselves in harm's way. Sitting ducks is the way I see it. But I had to ask you one more thing. I just remembered. They say the January 6th pipe bomb suspect, they caught him. And apparently the guy was an election denier. Mm-hmm. And I feel like no one's talking about that's not getting enough attention. Maybe that's just my algorithm. So I just want to ask you if you paid attention to that. I didn't see if you'd done a video on it. I missed it.
I haven't, and it's not. I instantly read the arrest warrant, the affidavit, which set out the facts supporting probable cause that this is the guy who did it. And it's an almost entirely circumstantial case. No identifying eyewitnesses, for example. But there's some strong circumstantial data points there suggesting this is the guy who did it. He may be, sort of mentally unstable and not well. I did see the election denier part. I also saw reporting that he kind of had, hate for both parties. And but to your point, Pete, I don't know why corporate media
has he not admitted. The suspect's name is Brian Cole. He's been charged? Has he not admitted to? He says,
when he was arrested and interrogated, I can't remember if he confessed. I don't recall seeing reporting on that, but I may have missed it. But it does seem like corporate media is equal parts irresponsible and fearful. And I'm sorry, I was a journalism major in college undergrad. I revere the study and the practice of journalism, but it seems like they are irresponsible. Maybe that's driven by their bottom line. And it seems like they are fearful that Donald Trump is going to come after them. So we're not hearing about things like, the assassination attempts and what was really behind those. And, even the Charlie Kirk shooting and now the pipe bomber thing. It all just kind of goes into a black hole, a black news hole. And I don't know why that is unless it's irresponsibility and fear.
You're keeping January 6th in people's memories with this event coming up, right? That's good. And
we're got Press Club on the evening of the 6th. Jim Acosta put it together, and it's going to be, Harry Dunn and Mike Fanone and Adam Kinzinger and Miles Taylor, myself, Olivia Troy, and others to be named in later trades, I guess. But it's come together very quickly. And here's the thing I want to say about that, Pete. And I don't want to compare 9/11 to January 6th. They were both horrific. One was an attack on our democracy or on our country from outside, and one was from inside, from a failed president who lost an election. But, we have annual commemorations of what happened on 9/11 as well. We should. But we don't seem to be focusing on the attack on American democracy and on the lives of everybody in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. And it's a shame because I think Jim Acosta and Harry and some others were putting this event together, and people who could have been sponsors were running in the opposite direction because that's not what they want to be linked with. Yeah. I want to be linked with commemorating the heroism of all of those law enforcement agents who protected the lives of Republicans and Democrats alike and who protected American democracy in a very real sense on January 6th. So we have to keep pushing back against the lies, the propaganda, the whitewashing. It's not a day of love. It was a day of an attempt.
No, I think that's important. I think that's what you and all those guys and I, to an extent, whenever I'm involved with anything, conversation around January 6th, are trying to do is to make sure that history is exactly as we fucking watched it. And I'll compare 9/11 to January 6th. And I was in New York City on 9/11, and I knew people who died 9/11, and I have some trauma around the after effects of it and so on. But I think the difference is a stranger attacking your loved one or someone that you love attacking your loved one, a stranger molesting your child, or a priest or a coach or a teacher, someone you trust. Because 9/11 and January 6th are not comparable for a lot of reasons, but in, I think, a lot of ways, it's worse that on January 6th, there wasn't more damage to human life, but certainly to the country in a lot of ways. I mean, it's hard to compare, but the fact that the President of the United States told a lie that he knew he was telling, Jack Smith has proved over and over, plenty of evidence that he knew he was lying, that the big lie was a lie, that he didn't buy it, plenty of evidence. He convinced millions of Americans still to this day of that lie. And that's, in a lot of ways, it's worse to be the attack coming from within. And we've always seen treason and espionage on ourselves as a pretty bad crime. This was the President of the United States led a campaign, a big lie. We've seen this in history, and we know what it caused. And I've always had compassion myself for people who believe the big lie, especially for those who acted on it and had their lives changed that day. So that's the way I see it.
Listen, people are entitled to listen to and act based on what the President of the United States says.
Yes.
Now, fortunately, we can discern fact from fiction, right? Propaganda from truth. Some people can't. Maybe some people don't want to, even if they can. But when the president says to you point blank, your vote was stolen, your election was rigged, your favorite president is being wrongfully dragged out of the Oval Office. Go attack the Capitol. Stop the steal. Stop the certification. Red-blooded Americans, blue-blooded Americans say, yes, Mr. President. Pete, I joined the Army because if my leaders told me, Glenn, if you don't go to some other country and fight like hell, you won't have a country anymore. Yeah. I would have saluted smartly and deployed. Fortunately, in my 6.5 years active duty, I was never called upon to deploy, and I'm just as happy. I don't want to go fight in wars if I can avoid it, but I signed up for it, and I was willing to do it. And some people, when they're told that by the president, of course they're going to accept it, whether critically or uncritically, and act on it. So, I hesitate before I say, well, I have, great sympathy or empathy for the people who attacked the Capitol. But listen, I understand why many of them were motivated to do what they did. Well, and that's why you have to hold the ringleader accountable, Donald Trump, because he's the one who sent them there.
And the January 6th investigation led by a bipartisan members of Congress and Jack Smith's investigation proved it all. It's all there. It's not, you can decide to look away from it, but if you paid attention to it, it was actually pretty engaging and entertaining. You covered it. You're friends with a lot of those people that prosecuted it. So there's no question about what happened anymore. There's that day and what led to it. Glenn Kirshner, Will you do a New Year's? Will you stay up? Will you and your lovely bride stay up even?
I'll stay up till 10 o'clock, but then I conk out. But I do nightly community meetings on Substack, which I love. I mean, I think I need them as much as the other community members need. So I'm sure I'll be on New Year's Eve. All
right. Go follow him on Substack if you haven't. On YouTube, obviously, you probably already are. Glenn, thank you as always for joining me, and everybody for watching live. Thank you very much.
Great seeing you, Pete.
All right. There it was. A great conversation with Glenn Kirshner, who hopefully I connected with today in Washington, D.C. at Jim Acosta's event again. And so I should have more insight from him. I'm sure I'll jam a microphone in his face. And now it's time to get to my conversation with Shawn Harris, which I shouldn't have been sitting on, and no one should be sleeping on Shawn Harris. ShawnForGeorgia.com. He is a Democrat running for Georgia's 14th district. That's the one that Marjorie Taylor Greene just resigned from. There's like 400 Republicans running in the district. It's a pretty conservative district. He's the only Democrat right now, and you should maybe go over to his website if you like the interview and donate to him, support him, tell your friends they live in Georgia to support him. Real interesting guy. Grew up there in Georgia on his family's farm. He now has his own cattle ranch, but he was in the United States Army, and at one point he signed up for the Marines first, actually, as a Marine, then joined the Army, retiring as a brigadier general. I got into it all with him on today's conversation. Learned a lot about Shawn. People said they really liked this conversation when we had it live. I think you will as well, and I will definitely reach out to him again. So let's do it right now. ShawnForGeorgia.com. Shawn Harris for Congress. Here he is.
I'm glad.
All right, recording number 2, and now we will go live. All right. All right, should be live in like 5 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, surprise. I'm here on New Year's Eve. If you're watching live, if you are listening to this later on, boy, I got a great guest joining me right now. Very excited to welcome to the show for the first time. We've just met retired Brigadier General Shawn Harris, who is running for Congress in Georgia, Georgia's 14th, the fighting 14th. And It's currently a seat held by Marjorie Taylor Greene. 47,000 Republicans are running for that seat. He is the only Democrat running for that seat. The primary date is still up in the air because she hasn't sent her letter in saying that she was retiring, but he's been running for a long time before she announced her retirement. Shawn, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm really excited to get to know you.
Hey, Pete, I'm so excited to be on your show. You do an outstanding job, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I just saw you on my friend, you joined my friend Glenn Kirshner, who has a massive audience. I hope that did good things for you. It'll do a lot more for you to be on his show than me, but you'll have more fun with me than Glenn. I just want to make that clear.
You know, I'm just excited to be on anybody's show because it's about just getting the word out about this special election and making sure that we can bring in help because it's going to take all of us to flip this seat. And I'm just excited that we're going to be doing it here in March.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about exactly about that. But I got to, whenever I'm interviewing people, I'm happy to promote and to plug and raise money and ShawnForGeorgia.com. I'll put it on the ticker in a moment here and everything. But I love the part about my job that I really enjoy is getting to know new people. I love it. We just met 30 seconds before. I've done a good bit of research on you, but I want to learn. I want to get to know you a lot more here at the beginning. And I got to just ask, first of all, you were a general in the Army. You were a Marine first, and then you went to the Army and spent most of your career there, a long time, as a matter of fact. But first, when and why did you join the military? How old were you? Right out of high school?
Straight out of high school, walked out of high school, went the very next day and joined the United States Marine Corps. Did the Paris Island route. Loved the day of it. Got out, went into ROTC at Tuskegee University, became a second lieutenant, and just followed the pattern like everybody else. And I would tell you, I was just blessed to serve, and I just want to continue to serve the American people, and especially the people here in Northwest Georgia.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up right there in Southwest Georgia, Blakely, Georgia, a little small town, just like where I live here in Rockmart, Georgia. But Blakely is we're known for two things, peanuts and football. And still today, my family still owns a farm there. I still go home and help my brother pick peanuts during the peanuts season. Just did that all through my military career. So when people say to me, Shawn, you seem like you're very comfortable being a cattle farmer. That's all I've done all my life. So it was a perfect setting for me after getting out of the military to come back home. My wife is from Seattle, Washington, so she wanted the mountains. So that's why we came to Northwest Georgia. So you ever come to my farm, it's not one flat spot on this farm.
Oh, really? I will come to your farm because I don't like flat spots. And I do like farms. I grew up in upstate New York, on and around farms a lot. Did you, when you were little, your family had a working farm?
Yes, 100% working farm. We raised cattle, peanuts, soybeans, cotton, the whole 9 yards. And still today, that farm is still up and running. My older brother runs it, but I go down during the picking season and actually help him out.
What was that like? Like growing up, was it a mixed race community? Was it a lot of diversity? You said football and farming. What was the ethnic diversity like in that part of Georgia? You know, I'm so ignorant about the South. The only place I have spent some time in is Georgia, but the only place really in Georgia I've spent time is in and around Atlanta. So, you know, we have these preconceptions about it. We quickly get to race and we quickly get to segregation and the history and so on there. But what was your community like growing up? What was your child? How old are you?
I'm 59 right now. Oh. I'm still a young guy.
Yeah.
My community was diverse, but when I say diverse, was diverse when it comes to the South at that particular time, black and white. But everybody loved hanging out together.
Really?
Yes, it was things before I was born and all those kind of things. They still were there in the shadows. But the reality of it is, my little hometown, everybody has always been together. Football and sports has definitely pulled the community together. We know how to win. We know how to get to Atlanta and go to the Dome. And we know how to put kids into college playing football. So that breaks down a lot of different barriers. And then the other thing that's significant about my town is that, you know, Georgia's number one industry is agriculture. The number one industry in my hometown is agriculture. And with that being said, everybody lived on a farm. Even if you lived in town, you still came out and worked on a farm.
That's crazy and interesting and fascinating. Everything you just said, I want to unpack for hours. But did you play football?
Oh, yeah. I played as a cornerback, and then I also played linebacker. So, you know, I was good, but I was being realistic. You know, there was a lot of the kids a lot bigger than me. I'm a pretty big guy, but when you start talking about Florida State, Alabama, and Georgia, those are a lot bigger than me. So the Marine Corps called my name.
Okay, so let's unpack that weird time in your life, or because like how tall are you?
I'm actually 5'9". No, I take that back. 5'11". What I'm talking about, 5'9".
You're 5'11", and did you not get recruited to play college football?
Some smaller colleges looked at me, but nothing that was going to be earth-shattering.
Right.
I've always been realistic and said, okay, what is your dream? How can you get there? And for me, my ultimate dream was just to be able to take care of my family, be able to be a respectable adult. And the military was a great path for me. And, oh, by the way, I got to let you know, 12 guys from my high school from the football team actually joined the United States Marine Corps with me. So when I went off to Parris Island, I didn't just go off by myself. Hell, half of my damn class went off.
That's wild that there was that many guys in your basic training Parris Island class. I've read a bit about Parris Island. I've seen some movies. What did your family think about you joining the military? It must have been in the early 83, 84 or something?
84 time frame, yes. And, you know, my family supported it. To be truth in lending, my sister didn't. My sister did not want me to go in the military. And I said, you know, it's going to be okay. But then after 40 years of being in the military and I put on that star, my sister said, you know what, Shawn, I think you made the right decision.
She waited until you became a general. Even lower ranks were not impressive enough. Damn, she is tough. What is you got to be a how many star?
I was a 1-star general, and I was up for my 2nd star, but it was time to come home and spend time with the family, spend time with the grandkids, and you got to know when to get out of the game.
Couldn't you talk for a long time about the ambition in the military to move up in rank and what that requires? My understanding is that it's a lot of politics. It's a lot of people got to like you. It's not as always about merit. It's like, does this person toe the line, and do enough people like them? And because you got to get all kinds of recommendations. And so how do you become, just that one question, how do you become a general in the United States Army? What do you have to go through?
The reality of it is all those things that you just laid out there, that's the myth that people actually think of is not true. The bottom line is you have to excel at every position that you're actually in. You have to earn your rank. And every time that you actually get promoted, prior to getting promoted, you have to go to a school and pass that particular school to actually be able to go to the next level. As you notice here on my shirt, it says leadership matters. And that's something that we say in the military all the time. We're not just going to promote you just to say you're a cool guy or a cool girl. We're going to promote you because you have the skill set to do the job. And that's what it's all about. So when you see these guys and ladies get into the very high rank, they are highly qualified. And not only are they qualified for that, usually senior leaders are looking at them saying, do they have the potential to even go higher? And that's what it's all about. It's the same thing on the enlisted rank, same thing on the officer rank. But at the end of the day, you as the individual have to be able to prove yourself. You have to be able to make sure not only that your senior leaders look at you and think you highly of you, but the most important part is what does your peers think? And ultimately, what does the soldiers or the Marines or whoever that you lead think about you? Because all those people get a chop on your evaluation. And that's how it should be. It's not just your bosses above you. It's everybody that you're actually in the food chain with.
If you say so. I have no idea about any of that. But to get to be that high of a rank, obviously it's quite a journey. What was your job? What was the brigadier general? Did you have a brigade under your command? Is that what that means? A brigade is how many?
No, when I became a brigadier general, when I was a colonel, I was a brigade commander.
Okay.
But when I became a brigadier general, pulling the 1-star, the assignments that I had after that, I was the chief of staff in Kosovo. After leaving Kosovo, I came back to DC and did some things we shouldn't be talking about. And then from there, I actually went to Israel and became the senior defense official. And that is what you call an attaché. So I was the senior military official inside of the embassy that represented the military side when it came to anything that we was doing with Israel. So, and then further other assignments school that took me back to what you would call the regular force. But the reality of it is when you're a senior leader, you pretty much kind of like a CEO, but you're still doing all the military stuff. So that's in this type setting, that's probably the best way to describe it. But the reality of it is, all those things I want to convey to your audience, all those things is not all about me. It's also about the great team that I had around me, not only when I was a brigadier general, when I was a colonel, when I was a lieutenant colonel, when I was a major, when I was a captain, and when I was a first lieutenant, and when I was a second lieutenant. So I'm a type leader that always talk about the team versus me, because anything that we do in the military is done with a team, a unit, or a large organization.
I appreciate that, and you keep reverting back to it, but I want to know about you, so I'm going to keep asking about you. And just quickly, you said we can't talk about the time, what you did in DC. So it was some kind of classified job that you can't even discuss what?
When I was in DC, I actually went through some training to prepare me for future assignments. So that, just to give me a skill set, and those skill sets that I learned in DC will help me when I actually go to Congress.
Sure.
Because in a top secret setting, I won't be surprised. And that what makes me different. Because as you know, Marjorie, several times when she went into a top secret thing, she came back and put it all on Twitter and every damn where else. So it's just basic things of knowing what to talk about and what not to talk about in a particular setting.
All I want to talk about is the things that you're not allowed to talk about. That's just my motivation. Immediately, I'm like, wait, what did you do? What can't? All right, so I could talk about that and keep asking you things that you could talk about, but I want to try to move it along. And there are two issues. Obviously, you can speak to, a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. You can speak to all the issues that matter for the constituents of Georgia's 14th district. And everybody should go to ShawnForGeorgia.com if you're watching live, or if you're listening on the podcast, and consider a donation. He's the only Democrat running, and Democrats are going to win every year and make a lot of surprises. So even though this district is heavily, very, very red, like plus 15 or something like that, so much has changed, and you can explain how you see that. But two issues I got to ask you about based on your time in the military and your life in agriculture and farming. First, in the military, what do you make of these targeted assassinations, you understand exactly how this works. You understand exactly how there's always a legal attaché or advisor to every military leader, every commander in every region of the country at every level. I don't think I need any of that military or legal expertise to know that shit is illegal. You cannot – I don't think they even know the names of the people on these boats, much less what they have on those boats. And the idea that you would kill somebody who is shipwrecked – I believe that's against the law in every country's rules, much less the international rules. What do you make just of those targeted assassinations that they are calling drug cartel leaders? When, in fact, by the way, finally, moving drugs is something that the Navy and Coast Guard has been dealing with forever. Interdiction. You stop them, you arrest them, you confiscate the drugs, and so on. It's police work. What do you make of those actions and the fact that there are many military leaders that are actually carrying them out?
Yeah, you said a lot there, so let me unpack it.
Sure.
First of all, I talked about this a few weeks ago on, I think it was on CNN or somebody's show. They had me on talking about it. And what I said there, and I still say here today, is we need to make sure that we follow international law. And right now, where I sit, it looks as if we're not following international law. And what I also said, and I still stand by today, is our Secretary of Defense, Pete, is well over his skis. He is not prepared to do the job of Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War, whatever he wants to call himself, because right now we are passing out orders that are actually illegal. But we need to give time for this investigation to come through and see what actually happened. But I believe it's going to be a lot of senior leaders and others that are probably going to have to answer some very hard questions and lose their careers in behind some of these particular events that have actually happened. As you notice, that shot that you was talking about was one of the first ones. Since then, the procedures have been changed. So somebody decided to listen to the lawyers and say, maybe we need to do something a little bit differently.
Why do you think what makes you think the procedures have been changed? Because you're talking about this kind of infamous incident that we all heard about. They bragged about it. The double shot. The guys were swimming. They had nothing, and they killed them. What makes they're still blowing up boats? How is it
still blowing up boats? But now, if somebody's hanging on the side of a boat, they're actually going and picking them up and then taking them back to their home country or locking them up. Then one of the key things I want to make sure that everybody understands that normally the Coast Guard does this mission. And the Coast Guard is the only branch of service that actually carries a badge like they're a cop, so that they can actually arrest these people and do a full-blown investigation.
I didn't realize they had that kind of law enforcement. Yeah, well, of course. So the other thing about Pete Hegseth is you retired as a one-star brigadier general. You worked your way all the way up. I just think that whether you are a veteran football player or financial analyst in a firm or leader of the military, if some new guy, young guy, who does not deserve to be your boss becomes your boss, ego entails you to react to that. Now, maybe you're trained not to and you're a modest guy and you seem like you probably are. I know I wouldn't. If it were me and I was a senior leader in an organization and some douchebag came in and started yelling at me in that way and talking to me that way, I would slap him silly. I would quit. I would put him down. I would have no ability to control myself. How do you think, and what if maybe you've heard that your friends and colleagues in the military are responding to this guy who, yes, he served in the military, but his fellow military members did not like him. They asked him to leave, as a matter of fact, because he was such an extremist. He's out there telling guys like you, guys who have achieved what you've achieved, guys who have done a whole lot more in their lives than you, guys who have been never accused of wrongdoing the way he has, who have never supported war criminals the way he has. Remember, he supported a notorious war criminal. How do you respond to this guy telling you what to do and telling you how to behave? Oh, and by the way, erasing anybody who looked like you from the history of the military. If there was a black accomplishment in the military, they're literally erasing that in museums, at cemeteries like Arlington, and now I just read at a cemetery in Europe, I think in the Netherlands. How do you feel about all that?
Well, I tell you, as a senior leader, and now I'm retired, but still as a senior leader, part of our job, part of our
Someone
training.
in the chat, I'm sorry, interrupting. A friend in the chat said, Pete, that's why you're not in the armed forces. Okay, Kim, exactly. But I'm just still saying. Yeah.
Yeah. But as a senior leader, our job is to work with anybody that comes into those particular seats and to actually try to support them. Yes, all the yelling and all those kind of things. At the end of the day, everybody that I still know in the military are 100% professionals. They're going to make sure that they try to make him successful. I think even you pull it away from the military and just take it out into the civilian world. All of us have had bosses that have been challenging. Okay. And as the greater team of the organization, you try to work your best to try to help that individual be successful. Now, in Pete's case, I think as we move here into the new year starting tomorrow, I think President Trump is going to get to a point and say, okay, Pete, this was a great experiment. You need to go because the world is not a nice place, and we don't need to have somebody who's not prepared for the job. I would tell you, Pete, let me tell you this real quick. You're right. I made it to the rank of Brigadier General, but I'm still not qualified to run the Pentagon and everything that we're actually doing. That's at my rank. I will tell you point blank, Shawn Harris does not have the skill set to step into that particular chair. And the current Secretary of War or Secretary of Defense, whatever he wants to call himself, is several ranks below me. That's why he's talking about somebody doing PT or running and staying in shape, because that's at the level that he's at. He's not at a level of a senior officer, what we're focused on.
There are way worse things about him. You're being very kind, I think. And I would imagine that's probably partly who you are and partly strategic because you want to stay above while also being obviously clearly critical. But I mean, let's be clear. You and I both know that there's an epidemic of sexual assault in the military. You and I both know that it has been something that's been talked about. It's been something that all the important committees in the Senate and House have tried to improve upon, have failed in many ways. Pete Hegseth has been accused of credibly assaulting lots of women. He's also gotten rid of leading women in the military, as you know. Yes. I believe the highest ranking admiral in the Navy that was a female, he got rid of her and others. In Special Forces, I believe there's another notorious one, and I'm sure there's ones up and down. The fact that this guy, who's been credibly accused of assaulting women, is in charge of a major bureaucracy organization, the Department of Defense, where that is an epidemic. To me, that is what disqualifies him. That alone disqualifies him, not even just – I don't know if you want to respond to any of that, but the gender stuff – and you didn't mention anything about the race stuff, the fact that he's erasing the accomplishments of American heroes who happen to be black. Who overcame a lot to get there.
Tell you, Pete has a very sketchy past, but the president of the United States picked him. And I lay that at President Trump's decision-making process. I put that 100% on him. I'm not going to say whatever's going on with President Trump. But what I will say is I think as time go on, people are going to look at what's currently going on in the military, and they're going to say, okay, enough is enough, and going to pull back. And when I say pull back, I'm not going to say anybody's going to revolt or any of those kind of things. Yep. However, I do believe the erasing of history is going to be reversed as soon as he gets out of there. And like I said, I don't see Pete making it to the end of President Trump's this term. I see him leaving here this year or next year in 2026.
I can see a future American presidential candidate running as a Democrat, whoever it might be, partly running on a campaign when it comes to military of fixing and renaming and repairing all of the damage that he's done along gender and race, getting rid of trans people in the military, like people who happen to be trans but also happen to be geniuses, doing really hard jobs that we've spent millions of dollars training them for, and then kicking them out or, encouraging. It's certainly and never been a great place for gay people, but certainly not now. I could keep talking about military.
Let me just touch one more thing because I really didn't touch it. When it comes to sexual assault, we got a lot of work to do in the military. And that's just like now inside the district. I give everybody my phone number. I tell them all the time. The reason why I give you my number is because as a senior leader in the military through all the ranks, I would tell my team or tell my organization, if somebody touches you inappropriately, I want you to call me. You don't have to be trying to work your way through all the stops and then somebody else think it's not important. I'm the commander. You call me. Don't call me every day. I'm not your buddy. But if something's going wrong and going stupid, you call that number. I'm going to answer the phone and we're going to get it fixed. So on the sexual assault thing, we got to get that fixed. On the history of black folk, hell, we've been catching hell for a long time. That's okay. But when it comes to our women and others, men also that are being sexually assaulted in the military, that's not good. Pete got to get it fixed. We got to get it fixed. So I just wanted to make sure that I touched on that in this interview because people that know me know that I'm very passionate about that when I was in the military, but I'm still passionate about it outside of the military because what happens to us in the military breeds into what we need help when it comes to the VA. And that's the side of the coin I'm on now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to call you every day.
Okay.
And just for no reason. Hey, Shawn, what are you doing? You'll be like, listen, man,
and I'm going to answer the phone and say, I'm outside feeding the cows.
Well, that helps me segue. Let's just talk a little bit about agriculture and what's happened to America's farmers because the trade war has sold out America's farmers again. Yeah. Like we could have predicted this. It really grates me. And I don't have a lot of compassion for farmers who voted for Trump again, knowing that he sold them out the first time. We're now giving them welfare. We're giving them a handout, if you will, because the trade war sold out markets for a number of different farmers, soybeans, which you apparently are into. And now they don't have somebody to sell their soybeans to. And I think that those farmers would rather sell the crop that they worked hard to grow and to harvest, but they can't. And so now we're giving them money to make up for it. It is, how bad is it? What do you hear from other farmers? Where do you lay the blame on all of that?
Well, I tell you, the blame on this is right at President Trump. President Trump is the one who put these tariffs in place. He put them in place last time. They didn't work, and he put them in place this time. At the end of the day, I actually just had breakfast this morning with several farmers. We were talking about cattle, but it's saying it could be the same conversation. We have a conversation about where are we going to be able to sell our product? And when it comes to our soybean farmers, right now, China is not buying our soybeans. The farmers are in the hurt locker. And the reality of it is, if we don't help our farmers out, the question is, rural America will fall completely apart. Like I told you earlier, Pete, the number one industry here in Georgia is agriculture. The number one industry in the United States is agriculture. And the number one industry in many of our small towns is agriculture. So if we allow this agriculture piece to just completely fall apart, our country will actually crumble. So where I stand is I want to help our farmers 100% because, hell, I am a farmer. But when I talk about that's talking about getting that farm bill actually done. And when I say getting the farm bill done, I want to take a little time and unpack that for you. One, right now, the farm bill is still based on 2018. It's designed that when we have hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever, it's supposed to help the farmer get back on their feet. The other piece that most people don't realize is that 60% of the money that's actually in the farm bill is actually for SNAP. That SNAP is for our seniors and less fortunate children. And guess what? We found out when the government shut down that SNAP was cut off. So I want to make sure that that farm bill is done because here in this district in Northwest Georgia is 141,000 people that are dependent on SNAP. The rest of that farm bill is the farmers that I see every day. So when it comes to are they getting a buyout or not, I would tell you most of the farmers that I know don't want the check, but they want to make sure that they actually have somewhere that they can sell their product and get a fair price. And just right now, President Trump, he owns it. He has actually went in and messed up the market. And China, I can speak on China from a military point of view. I can speak from China on an economic point of view. China's playing the long ball, and China knows as long as they go very slow on buying our product, it will hurt rural America. And rural America, yes, you're right, voted for Donald Trump. But I think rural America is starting to figure out that these policies that Donald Trump and others are putting out there in Marjorie are not working for them, and it's actually hurting us across the board. So that's what I would say about our farmers.
Just quickly, you said you raise peanuts. You still harvest them yourself?
Yes. My brother actually runs the farm down there. What I do on a daily basis up here, I raise beef cattle. So I'm the guy who makes sure that you get your steaks. I'm the guy who makes sure you get your hamburger and all those kind of things. So that's what I do on my personal farm.
Yeah. I mean, you say that, but I've never received any steaks from you. But that would be corrupt. Also, we don't want that. Real quick on the peanuts, I love peanuts and I love beef. I'll admit to it. I love peanuts. I always have them in my house. They grow in a bush, a tree?
On a bush. Yeah, grow on a bush that's actually in the ground, and then you have a machine that flips them up. A couple of days later, after they dry, you come through and pick them. Now, those peanuts that you're talking about could very well end up being the peanuts that you have in your house, or it could very well be turned into like peanut oil and stuff that restaurants and things use to cook different.
Well, the peanuts I have say Harris Farm on them, so maybe they're your brothers. I'm not.
Maybe I doubt it. He's not that big.
My peanuts have your face on them, smiling with the thumbs up and a logo for your campaign. It's really impressive. No,
that'd be impressive.
Let me just ask you this though. One more thing about farming, which is, what do you make of the immigration issue? And I don't know how many undocumented people work on farms in Georgia, but I do know I grew up in upstate New York. There are not a lot of brown people, Hispanic people, Latino people living in and around Syracuse or central New York. But disproportionately on farms, they make up a huge amount of the staff on dairy farms, especially where I grew up. And my understanding is they can't do their work. The farm can't work without the employment of these undocumented people. The federal government has always looked the other way and been okay with it. Republicans, Democrats, whatever. How true is it in Georgia or anywhere else that the undocumented, that the staff is heavily undocumented people, and they, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would tell you, I don't want to say it's people undocumented. Most of the people that you see working on the farms here in Georgia are come through, I think it's called the H-1-2 program. Don't quote me on my letters. Mm-hmm. But the problem that we're running into is after they get here and working, ICE is being so aggressive that those individuals now are saying, I'm scared to come to the United States and actually work on your farm.
Sure.
Or they get here and the farm says you need to go down the road 5 miles to the other farm and work there. They scared to get on the road because they're scared they're going to get snatched up and put into the system. So right now, currently what just happened in our district yesterday in Dalton, Georgia, ICE was up there stopping people in traffic, and they actually arrested 19 people. Now, I don't know whether those people documented or not, but the reality of it is it gets back to what you were talking about. When you have people working on your farm, they are nervous to go out and do the work. The work is not done around the farmhouse. Some farms could be 2,000 and 3,000 acres big. So hence, you need help. And I will tell you, it is very hard to get very good help that's going to come to work every day on a farm. Because as you know, farm work is not easy.
I don't know that. I guess I would imagine it is.
Really when you come down to visit, I'll give you a whole day down here on the farm.
I would never do that work because I imagine it's very hard. And I can't think of a job on a farm that I would be able. It sounds like whenever people criticize like public school teachers or farmers, I always want to be like, walk a day, bro. Walk a day in their shoes and clean some shit and pick some crops and get back to me. You won't last a day, you fragile little snowflake. And I'm talking to myself. I mean, like I went and volunteered at my daughter's school. And I was there for 15 minutes, Shawn, before I wanted to murder a child. 15 minutes. Kid wouldn't shut up. There's no way I could do that job. There's no way I could work on a farm either because I am soft. I'm as soft as they come along those lines.
Well,
that's for sure.
I would tell you, Pete, I just give you a prime example this morning. You and I were talking roughly about noon today. So before coming on your show, I actually had to feed up and do all the stuff. It is cold, very cold in Georgia this morning. And cow manure is everywhere. So what I'm saying to you is this: when you're a farmer, when you're a teacher, when you're a nurse, when you're all these kind of jobs, you have to love it to do it.
You love cattle ranching. You love that.
I love it. I love it.
Well, let me ask you about that then too, real quick, which is the price of beef. What is this whole thing about? Because my understanding is that beef farmers are making out right now, but consumers are losing. And I'm sure it's not that binary, but talk to me about the prices of beef right now.
It's two different things. The price of beef for the farmer, for me, the reason why price of beef is actually high is because the amount of cattle across the entire United States is the lowest it has ever been in the last 50 years. So it's a supply and demand thing. Okay. That's on my end. And we actually producing very good beef, and the consumer like yourself and others love the product given to you. Now, when you go to the grocery stores, the farmers like me, we have no control of what happens at this grocery store. That is 4 processing plants that's here in the United States. 2 or 3 of them are actually owned by foreign countries. They actually dictate the price of that steak or the price of that hamburger that's actually in there. So that's why the farmers got so ticked off when the president said that he was going to give $40 billion to Argentina and then turn back around and let Argentina bring beef in here to bring down the beef prices, because the two things are not the same.
So
and the reality of it is the people love beef. They were willing to pay for it. And if they don't pay for it, then they'll go and buy chicken and all those kind of things.
I feel like I have such a hard time with farmers who own and run their farms who vote for Trump, because if you own and run your farm, you are an independent business person. You really understand the industry that you're in. You might be second or third generation. You might not be. But either way, you understand the supply and demand. You understand markets. And most importantly, you understand animals and how to raise them and sell them and so on. Mm-hmm. How could you be someone like, I understand how things work and politics work. Obviously, you're animated by this issue or that issue, and you support, in this case, Republican, and you think they're best for you. But I got to imagine, as a result of what you just said about Trump and Republicans bringing beef in from a foreign country to throw off that supply issue, that even the most rock-ribbed Republican MAGA farmer who raises beef at least, much less other crops, would be like, oh, this is messed up. Is that what you're hearing? Do you talk to those people? Do you know them well?
I talk to them every day. Every day. Matter of fact, after I get off the phone with you, I'm going to hang out with a couple of them here this afternoon because I got to help a farmer on his farm. And that is one of the things I think your audience should understand is down here on the farm, everybody may have on different T-shirts, a blue one or a red one. But then when people need help on their farm, because it's so hard to get people to come help us on the farm, we all go and help each other. So I get a chance to listen to this conversation every day of how can you wear a blue shirt or how can you wear a red shirt and vote for Donald Trump or all these kind of things. So many people right now are just ingrained in politics as if it was a Georgia versus Alabama football game. They just stick with their jersey, regardless of how bad that jersey is hurting them. So right now, what's currently going on, farmers, at least in our area, are saying, you know what, I got to look at something different. And that's why what I call Ronald Reagan Republicans are actually supporting me and actually voting for me. And I believe what this election is said and done, you're going to see where I got Democrats, independents, and Ronald Reagan Republicans that switched over. And when I say switched over, they're not going to switch over and say, okay, I'm a Democrat. They're going to give me a chance to see, can I actually get things done? Because right now, under Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump, things have not been working out too well. And the number one thing that most farmers are concerned about is losing their farm. They don't want to be the last person that used to own the farm and lost it, because across the board, corporate America is coming here trying to buy up all the farmland and start planting houses versus anything else.
When you talk to them, here you are, a Democrat, a cattle rancher on their farm, helping them with their cattle. They can't possibly vote against you. They know you personally. They know, like, is that the case? Are you turning people?
That is the case. You have to break through those barriers. When people get a chance to know you as the person, then that's when you start breaking through all that stuff you hear on the news. And every farmer that knows me personally throughout this district knows that I am the only person in the race that get up every day and actually live their lives. It's something for somebody else to say, yeah, I'm from Northwest Georgia. But if you've never been a farmer, you never grew up on a farm, it is very hard for you to say that you're going to be passionate about getting these things done. Because guess what? You either know it or you don't. And you can always tell somebody that's stepping around manure versus stepping right in it. And I step right in the damn manure, and we're going to get it fixed.
I love it. I love it. So just from the chat, there's a couple people in here, clearly MAGA people, and like I
tell them I said hi.
Shawn says hi. Go support him in Georgia, but I don't mind if people come in and during the live chat or I've always hosted live show. I love debating and arguing and learning why people think what they do. If they say ridiculous things and they're conspiracy theorists, I'll get rid of them. But a couple of comments have been made that seem to in the chat that seem to insinuate. I have no idea about any of this. That somehow Democrats under Democratic leadership, farmers have had to quote cull more of their herds, whether it be poultry or cattle, as a result of disease. And the only thing I can imagine and extrapolate, and you'll explain this to us right now, is that Democrats, when they're in leadership, probably are more likely to enforce regulation around health issues, around environmental issues that make farmers' jobs harder or more expensive. The consumer, however, I'm guessing, would rather not have a chicken that has bird flu necessarily, although I don't think you can pass it on necessarily. More importantly, explain to me what the difference is between Democratic and Republican leadership, if there is, when it comes to the health department's inspections and culling herds as a result of bird flu or hoof and mouth or whatever the hell cattle get.
Yeah. Both administrations, Democrat and Republicans, always are taking the health of the American people in consideration. Right now, the Trump administration is dealing with a bird flu issue, number one. And we're having to curl a lot of chickens right now throughout the United States. On top of that, the reason why beef is not coming in from Mexico is because they have a mouth hoof situation. So until they get that fixed down there, the Trump administration is working with Mexico and others to make sure that doesn't get up here to our particular herd. So guess what? The individuals that are saying that, they just talking. They got some talking points from somewhere, but don't realize that this is the front line of keeping them and their family safe.
I have heard, though, Brooke Rollins, who's the current Secretary of Agriculture, and I think RFK too, maybe not, basically say there's an alternative to culling. And I didn't think that was a political thing. I thought that, like, do farmers protest against having to slaughter their herds? You can't have, I would imagine that if one chicken is diseased or one cow is diseased, you have to spread. This is about virology. This is about the spreading of a virus. You can't allow your entire investment, your entire farm, every animal, every head of cattle, every chicken to be sick and die because you lose all your money. I would imagine it's an economic issue, not a moral issue. It's an economic issue.
100% of you're exactly right. When I go from my house and go to my neighbor's farm, we are trained as farmers through the Cattlemen Association that when I go on his farm and go see his cows, I have to wash my boots off because I don't want to bring any type disease or any type thing from my farm to his farm. Vice versa. That's what we're doing on the ground. So all this stuff that you're talking about is nothing new to the farmer on the ground. This is what we do on a daily basis. It's just people hearing it and they think that it's something crazy. No, at the end of the day, we are here to feed America. But in order for us to feed America, if we got to kill off 1 million chickens, or we have to end up killing off 1,000 or 200,000 head of cattle, you're going to feel that when it comes to the grocery store because of supply and demand. And that's really what we're talking about here. Now, Secretary Rollins has put out a whole lot of stuff in the last couple of days. What I will tell you from a farmer point of view, it sounds good, but we hadn't seen anything out of those results. So if you would talk to farmers, they'll say, yeah, I went and filled out the paperwork, but nobody's sent me a check or nobody's did anything. And oh, by the way, on the farm, certain things got to be planted at a particular time. Certain things got to be picked at a certain time. All of those things. And if these farmers don't actually get the aid that they were supposed to be promised, guess what? The bank is not going to give them any more money and they're going to be going bankrupt.
I could talk to you forever. I would like to talk to you again. I enjoy talking to you. I feel like you're someone who is very unique, at least in my life, to talk to, because there's most of your life is something I could learn and benefit from, and I'm sure that's true of a lot of other people as well. And I really appreciate getting to know you, and I'm real excited for your run. A lot of people probably don't think you could win in this district where there are so many Republican voters. How are you going to win?
Well, I tell you, the way I'm going to win is simple. Is one, I talk to everybody across the board, Democrats, independents, and Republicans in every zip code. So I go places that others, even Republicans, don't go because they say there's not enough votes there. The other piece is this, is I'm the only guy that can say, yes, I'm a Democrat. However, I'm not married to the Democratic Party. I'm in the leadership business. I'm always going to vote for what's best for rural America, what's best for right here in Northwest Georgia, period. I guarantee if you talk to my 17, 18 Republicans that I'm running against, every last one of them cats will say Trump first. Soon as you damn say Trump first, guess what you just said? That means that the people here in Northwest Georgia is not first. You're going to do what's best for Trump and his administration. Guess what? Most of those policies that Trump puts out is best for New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, L.A. They're not what's best for all our little small farm towns here in Northwest Georgia. And that is why I'm going to win this thing, because people are starting to realize that what Margie was doing up there did not benefit us, because everything that happens here in Northwest Georgia is kitchen table issues. Yeah. Period.
I mean, I think that's true everywhere, though. I don't like you saying that kitchen table issues are what people care. Like, they care about kitchen table issues in every single high rise in every single city in America. 100%. Don't act like you own kitchen table issues, Mike. Shawn.
Well, you got to keep in mind, I only got 10 counties, so I have to stay laser focused on my 10 counties. Inside my 10 counties, I only got one town that probably has 100,000 people. Most of the places are 30,000.
The elitism I find in rural folks like yourself, thinking they are the only ones who have kitchen table. We have kitchen tables in the city.
I know. I used to live in the city. It was pretty good. It was a nice high rise.
Do you have, last question, do you have a moral or religious philosophy or influence, anything that you live by? I ask this a lot of people who are smart, people who are leaders like yourself, military people, business people, anybody who's had a lot of success in their life, who's overcome a lot of in their life. I don't know what you've overcome. But I mean, like, is there any kind of like driving moral philosophy for you or principle or anything that you live your life by?
Yeah. I'm a Christian, and I'm always thinking about, how would Jesus do this? How would he treat people? And that's why in some of our discussion, even in this discussion, I didn't go super, super negative, super mean somebody, because that's not me. At the end of the day, I'm a person that says, how can I reach across the aisle and get things done? I don't have to agree with you. I don't even have to like you. But at the end of the day, when it comes to Northwest Georgia, I got to set all that aside and say, okay, how do I do what's best for here? And based on my faith, what makes me be able to walk through those barriers and actually get it done. So when people try to pull me into different things, I don't let it rattle me at all. I stay laser focused on what's the ultimate goal for the people I'm trying to represent.
I love that. Even though I think Jesus would flip over a kitchen table.
He had to flip over a couple of them. Yeah, that's no problem. Sometimes you have to do that to get people attention.
You're one of those guys too. It's like a military guy, is like a big guy, but you never get violent because you don't have to. Because your presence is like what?
Sometime being calm, being respectful, is more intimidating than yelling and screaming.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what that's like because I'm a little guy. Because we're just like in the cartoons when I was always that little dog barking next to the big dog. That was me barking. But I was always friends with the big dog. That's what my dad told me. It's a little guy. I always make friends with us. So you know exactly who I am because I'm the guy who cozied up to you your whole life. Hey, Shawn.
You're the guy but before we go in, I say to you, hey, relax. It's going to be okay, man. Come on now. Drink
I think
your tea.
You might even pat my head a little bit.
It's going to be okay. All right.
Calm down, buddy.
We got to make it through dinner.
Shawn, it is great talking to you, getting to know you. ShawnForGeorgia.com. Everybody, let's do it again, okay?
No doubt. Thank you very much, brother.
Hit that red X on the bottom because I'm going to take on these trolls right now, and I don't want you to have anything. I don't want you to see it. I don't want you to know me this way. I don't want this to be affiliated with you at all. Thank you, Shawn.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
There he goes. All right. There he goes. That's right. Shawn Harris for Georgia. Go check him out. ShawnForGeorgia.com. And Glenn Kirshner, of course. Look for all of my reporting coverage of the Jim Acosta's event at the National Press Club with a whole bunch of the folks from the January 6th insurrection. And I am hoping to talk to you on Thursday night at our hangout and in Vegas. If you're not coming, you should come. It's going to be a party. Pod Jam 3. Get your tickets now. That's all I've got. Hope you appreciated it. And thank you very much for supporting me. Bye now. Be the change you want to see in the world. John Carroll taking us out as always.
You gotta stand up, stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up, that's right. You got to rise up, you got to stand up. Stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run there.